Hello. I'm here to share my summer internship experience at a lab in Seoul National University School of Medicine. So if you're new to my channel, hello again. My name is Jungmin. I'm a sophomore at UC Berkeley majoring in cognitive science. I actually did a poll really recently on my Instagram on which video you guys want to see next. The choices were thrifting in Korea, reading my UC essays, and this video, and this was the most requested one. So we're starting off with this, but eventually you'll get to see all the video ideas. Follow me on Instagram if you want to put your insights into which videos would be up on this channel. This summer I interned at a cognitive neuroscience lab in Seoul National University. I wanted to share my experience at the lab from the very beginning and some tips that could be helpful to anyone interested in research internship in general. So before we get started, you might be wondering why this video in English when in fact I'm talking about my research experience in a Korean lab. But I did spend a lot of time thinking about which language this video should be, and I came to a conclusion given the fact that this video could speak to mainly three groups of audience. So the first group could be Korean international students whose home universities are in English-speaking countries like the States, UK, Canada, New Zealand, or Australia, many more. This is also the group that I belong to. And the second group could be foreign students who attend Korean universities or are studying abroad looking for research experience in Korea. And I thought it could be some of my friends or anyone just watching this video who's more comfortable in English looking for just general research experience. And the third group I thought could be Korean students whose home universities are in Korea and are more comfortable with Korean. I decided to make this video in English to better reach the majority of the audience groups, but I would include Korean subtitles right here. So enough of that, let's get started. Today I'm wearing this green cardigan that I actually wore to the first day in the lab. So I feel like I'm in this research mood again. I don't even know how this brings, but I thought I wanted to go kind of in between casual and formal. So this was the cardigan I chose. I wanted to first walk you through this whole process of my story of getting into this research position. A little bit of a background about myself is that I am thinking of going to grad school. I have also worked in a business psychology lab back on campus in Berkeley. The whole process starts from mid-April. Before COVID-19 and anything else, I was originally planning to go to a summer school in London, but of course that got cancelled and I came back to Korea. As we all know, I was planning to take summer school at Yonsei University instead, and one of the programs that they have was research program where you could apply to be an undergrad research assistant. So I was really looking forward to it, and I was really sad that I first of all wasn't able to experience what college life in Korea is like, and of course the research position I look forward to. And then some time passed. One day I was procrastinating to take my Zoom recording class, and of course I was thinking about what I'm gonna do and what other plans I would have for this summer, because now I was just planless. Is that even a word? Let's just make it a word. I was just planless. I'm a person who needs to have plans so that I know which direction I'm heading to. One day a brilliant idea came up to my mind. I was like, why can't I just apply on my own? I started searching for labs. So I literally googled cognitive science labs in Korea. Oh, and the key tip there is that when you look for labs, you really shouldn't try to look on Naver, which is a main search engine. In Korea, I don't think there are many labs that come out on there. So instead, you should try to look on Google, target a specific university that you're thinking of, and many other labs in other universities as well would come out. After I found those labs, it was basically just cold emailing, and I don't know about you guys, but to me cold emailing sounds so scary. I don't even know what the word cold in cold emailing stands for, but to me it just feels like the cold comes from the professor's replies or the lack of their replies. Because I went to an info session once back on campus and they quite emphasize a lot that and it is normal that not a lot of students get replies back. So I was really scared. I didn't even know if cold emailing was a thing in Korea. I was quite nervous and scary the whole time, but I was like, let's just give it a shot and see how things go. And I ended up applying to 6 labs, of which I actually heard back from 5 professors. Over 80% of chance of hearing back. I think that is a good shot. Any of you are watching this video and now and thinking whether you should do it or not, you should definitely try it out and see your chances. And it was pretty high for me, so you might as well go for it. Out of the 5 professors that I heard back from, one of them said their lab was on a tentative break until COVID-19 gets settled down. And then the other professor, he asked me for interview slots, which I didn't expect at all. I sent him my available times for the interviews and he never replied me back. And other than him, no other professor actually asked for interviews. Eventually, I got into 3 research positions and they were all in quite different fields of cognitive science. One of them was in cognitive psychology, one of them was in business psychology, and the last one, the one that I actually spent my summer at, was a cognitive neuroscience lab. It was all about neuroimaging and mental disorders, and I do have some vlogs. You guys can check it out if you want to. I'll link it right over there or there. I don't know, whichever side that is. So I was at the lab for about 2 months where I pretty much completed a directed study on decision making and this data pre-processing for EEG and fMRI scans. And in the end, I gave a final presentation about literature review that I did over the 2 months. So that is quite it for my story. From now on, I wanted to talk about tips that I thought would have been helpful if I knew before I reached out to the professors. Generally speaking, I feel like it is so important to note that getting research position is all about research. And by research there, I mean you should really look into details of the professor's work, and any grad students' work in the lab that you might be able to work with. And this research isn't only for your application process and when you cold email the professors, but it would also help a lot of your actual experience at the lab. So I will be dividing this tip section into 2 small parts. So the first one would be any tips for the application, so the actual cold emailing part. And the second part where I will be sharing tips on what to look for in your actual experience. When you send your emails to professors, you should have a general email format that you can send out to anyone. So basically just a header, 2 to 3 paragraphs on your research interests and how you found the lab, your experience, as well as your passions. When I sent the emails, I wrote it in Korean because I thought it was, of course I needed to write in Korean because I'm sending to Korean professors. But then actually it turns out that some of my friends who worked together during summer sent their emails in English. Turns out they all got the positions. So if you're more comfortable writing in English, especially formal emails that you could send to professors, I guess you really don't need to translate that into Korean, which is quite a struggle for me. I grew up in Korea, but I didn't really have any experience in writing formal emails to professors. So I did look up so many blog posts and so many videos on how to draft your polite emails to Korean professors. I have plenty of tips and specific words that would be helpful if you include in your cold emailing template. I wasn't really sure if I should go in depth about the email format that I used. If you guys are interested, I can make another video about in-depth how-to for cold emailing template. So let me know if you're interested in that. But enough of the email thing. So once you send out your emails, or even during the research process, you should try to keep a Google Sheet where you can just keep track of everything. In there, I had the labs, the professors' names, the locations, your interests that align with the professor's work, and your preference levels. That definitely helped me a lot, especially because I didn't send out all emails on a single day. I sent out 3 emails per day on 2 to 3 days span. I actually saw this tip in Meigao, another college YouTuber's video, and it was definitely so helpful. And the other tip is kind of cliche, but it's so important that you start this process early. Most of these positions are first come, first served. It's definitely helpful if you start this process earlier. If you're looking for research positions in the upcoming fall, maybe right now, it might be a little late, but you should definitely give it a try and see if they're still recruiting. And the last tip for cold emailing part is that you should use Kimbaksanet, which is a Korean website, kind of like Rate My Professor for reference. So I didn't really know this before I applied. One of my friends who I worked with told me that she used this website to look into how the the lab runs or what the vibe of the lab is like. So I didn't really do that, but turned out the lab that I interned had a really good review on there, but one of the labs that I was kind of considering had a really bad review. I think it would be definitely helpful if you try to look into the reviews on the website. Moving on to the tips that you should look for your actual time there, I want to stress out the type of the research experience that you would get. So here by type, I mean whether it's going to be a directed study, like an independent study type of thing, or a typical research assistance job where you're put into a group of grad students, work on specific projects. My experience there kind of ran more like an independent study, which actually worked out pretty well for me because I had a focus of interest that I wanted to look into, but the whole learning experience was very independent. Of course, I was able to ask questions to grad students and professors, and it was so nice to do that. But at the beginning, it was kind of confusing. I didn't know where to begin, how to start, and just who to talk to. So I feel like that's something that you should really look into if you don't really do well in that independent learning setting. Now that I look back, one of the labs that I was considering, the professor kind of told a grad student to put me in this project. So I think my pro tip there is that if they don't mention specific projects, then it's probably just your independent learning experience, whereas they mention certain projects, then it's most likely that you will be put into those groups and work on specific projects that they're working on. And the other tip is paid or non-paid. When I sent the emails to professors, I clearly stated that I'm looking for a non-paid research position or almost just like a volunteer job, because I knew that budget doesn't really go full in hand to support all undergraduate students. But I didn't realize how much money it would take for me to commute, because I commuted every single weekday. I also had to eat out every single day. If financial circumstance is one of the major things that you're looking for, then I think you should definitely check out whether you're getting paid or non-paid. But there are some labs, they actually pay undergrad research assistants, something to look for when you apply. And the last tip of the day is have a goal in your mind. This really depends on the lab you're working, who you'll be working, and what projects you'll be working on. But mine worked more as like an independent study. It was really crucial for me to have a clear goal in my mind. I personally reached out to one of the grad students. I was able to set up a timeline. If you're not really into literature review or independent studies type of research experience, I think still having a goal in mind could be helpful. That concludes today's video on how I got a research assistance position during the summer at Seoul National University and School of Medicine. I shared my experience of starting from the beginning and getting the positions, and some tips that I think could be helpful to anyone interested in getting research experience. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and just let me know amazing video ideas you have or any other questions that you want to ask. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye!